Before I reveal to you the chart, I'm going to turn back to Daniel chapter 2 and show you who Nebuchadnezzar was in verse 31 of Daniel uh, chapter 2. Daniel chapter 2. Thou, O king, sawest, and behold, a great image, this great image whose brightness was excellent, stood before thee, and the form thereof was terrible. This image's head was of fine gold, his breast and his arms of silver, his belly and his thighs of brass, his legs of iron, his feet part of iron and part of clay. Thou sawest till that a stone was cut out without hand, which smote the image upon his feet, that were of iron and clay, and brake them to pieces. Then was the iron, the clay, the brass, the silver, and the gold broken to pieces together, and became like the shaft of a summer threshing floor. And the wind carried them away, that no place was found for them. And the stone that smote the image became a great mountain, and filled the whole earth. This is the dream, and we will tell the interpretation thereof before the king. Thou, O king, art a king of kings, for God, for the God of heaven has given thee a kingdom, power, and strength, and glory, and wheresoever the children of men dwell, the beasts of the field, and the fowls of the heaven has he given unto thy hand, and hast made thee ruler over them all. Thou art this head of gold, and after thee shall arise other kingdoms inferior to thee, and another kingdoms of brass, which shall bear the ruler of all the earth, and the fourth kingdom be strong as iron, for as much as iron breaketh in pieces, and subdue all things, as iron that breaketh all this shall it break in pieces, and bruise. And whereas thou sawest the feet and the toes part of powdery clay, and part of iron, the kingdom shall be divided, but there shall be in it of the strength of the iron, for as much as thou sawest the iron mixed with modern clay, and as the toes of the feet were part of iron and part of clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly broken. And whereas thou sawest iron mixed with the modern clay, they shall mingle themselves with the seed of men, but they shall not cleave one to another, even as iron is not mixed with clay. Now, he told Nebuchadnezzar he was this image in chapter 2. This was the one, his descendant coming after him, who would carry on the genealogy of King Nebuchadnezzar, king of the Chaldees. Now, the head of gold was the United States of America. I spoke this of this image. This was the descendant of Nebuchadnezzar. He's telling us where that Nebuchadnezzar came from. The breast of silver was the United Nations supporting the head of gold, which the shoulder as the same as the shield breast and the arms support the head. The silver was that part supporting the head of gold. And the brass was the military generals of the military fighting force. We call them top brass in the military. So they are. Now the iron, the legs of iron, legs is what transport the man to and from upon the earth. And so by them being iron, and this means that their vehicle, they had entombed themselves and was made of iron or metal. This is what they was their fighting equipment. And where the clay was seen part iron and part clay, the clay was the human being themselves, The foot soldiers. That's what they was. He said it foot. These were the foot soldiers on the ground, and these were their vehicles. They were the ones with their military hardware breaking in pieces peoples and nations, and that while they was inside in their armored vehicle. Now, however, he also told him in chapter 4 he was this nation, that he was a great nation. And what this becomes, it becomes a replica of the United States of America and the United Nations. It tells us that he was going to be great in the season upon which this would come to pass, that he would be a ruler over all the nations of the world. This is where chapter 4 coming in. But he spoke this parable. God had revealed this to Nebuchadnezzar. This was a tree which he had taken over. At the time of this prophecy, Nebuchadnezzar had taken over the Holy Land that God had given to Abraham. So that means he had authority over it. And just so Daniel told him that he was going to be a ruler. He was going to be he gonna be this year. In other words, history was going to repeat itself. The descendants of Nebuchadnezzar, who came from the Gentiles, they was going to siege this land once more after they became rich. But what became a magnet that drew them over there was the crude oil. Caused them to take this and gain possession of this land. But the land at that time, God was going to be taken and given back to the Hebrews. So this was a trade that I drew here. This was the crude oil reserve. And what it was, these were the beasts of this was the invasion of Iraq and Afghanistan, which was the first invasion of this war. So he had got mighty, but his industrialized world that he had created, where he made crap and everything, had begun to fall down because the heartbeats of their industries depended upon the crude oil of the Middle East. So running out of having nothing to sell and to put up as a ransom for an exchange for this oil, they had to go and try to change the law which the Hebrew children live by. Now, if you notice, I put the images up here. The Gentiles and the Hebrews. The Hebrews was the peoples of the black race. Predominant black race are peoples of color. The Hebrews was the peoples with a lighter pigment count, as you see. But I used one similar as a head of gold to let you know one of them was the head ruling the rest of them, but that didn't take away the dynamic. They were the same, from the same family tree. Now, what God had told them, this is what they're taking us over to the Middle East right now. He said, if they don't get out under this tree, then God is going to cut off the crude oil. He had two ways he could do it. He could let it yield the oil, but take away the substance of the life of oil. Because it tells us in Revelation chapter 6, leave the oil. So if Revelation chapter 6 tells us he's going to leave the oil, but yet he tells us here he's going to cut the branches off the tree, the leaves, that means he's going to take away the substance of life. He's going to leave the root of the oil in the ground, leave the oil in there, but he's going to take away the substance of life of the oil, where if they take it and bring it over by the ship load, and if it has no substance, it will not yield the fruits of its strength. It will be a weak substance of oil. This is what it's telling us, and then this what it is telling us. If these nations do not get out under this tree that feeds the whole world, this is what he's telling us. Where is the crude oil? Where they flocked there and created wars just to get this. That's what God telling us in Daniel chapter 4, that they went over there to take the crude oil. That's what it's saying. Now, there's other parts that I have to get to, and it's going to be our most large part of